Good morning all. Today is the 29th of May 2023. Today is historic because it's Nigeria's transition day. We have been having several transitions in the country, but especially since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, we've been having transition from when General Abdul Salami Abubakar handed over to Obasanjo, and it continued. Obasanjo handed over to President Yar'Adua. After that, it was President Jonathan, then from President Jonathan to our current President Muhammadu Buhari. And now, today is one in the series of handing overs we've been having in Nigeria. And today's one is unique in the sense that me and you are going to be participants in the historic event. So you are welcome to the Abuja Leadership Center of the University of Abuja that is organizing this event, being the 7th Distinguished Leadership Series. The Distinguished Leadership Series is our flagship public lecture series that we started about a year ago to make sure that we bring in public intellectuals to engage with not only the university community but with the Nigerian public to share knowledge, share experiences. Today we are taking on an astute administrator, the man who has seen it all in the public service before he joined the academia. Professor Tunji Olaopa has been there in the public service. He has been involved in the public service from his younger days when he was employed in the public service. Then we also have Dr. Tony Ikpasaja, who is also a faculty in the Abuja Leadership Center of the University of Abuja. Now, let me go straight to telling us who our guest lecturer for today is. His name is Professor Tunji Olaopa. He's a University of Ibadan trained political scientist, a retired Federal Permanent Secretary, and Professor of Public Administration. He is the founder and executive vice chairman, Ibadan School of Government and Public Policy, ISGPP, Bodija in Ibadan, and is until recently a directing staff at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, Kuru, Jos in Plateau State. Olaopa joined the Federal Civil Service in 1988 as a speechwriter and chief policy analyst in the office of the President, Aso Villa, Abuja. He served the federal government in many capacities in the presidency as Deputy Director and Head of the Policy Division, Federal Ministry of Education, and as Director of Programs, Bureau of Public Service Reforms, BPSR, the presidency, amongst numerous other assignments. He has received training in executive education or served as course facilitator at numerous seminars, conferences, and training programs all around the globe, including the Lagos Business School, Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, the Royal Institute of Public Administration, Lee Kuan Yew Public Policy Institute in Singapore, Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand, to name but just a few. He has served on several national, continental, and global expert teams in the continent and all around the world. Professor Olaopa was appointed Federal Permanent Secretary in 2010 and served in 5 MDS, namely Career Management Office, State House, and in the Federal Ministries of Labor and Productivity, Youth Development, and Communication Technology. He retired from the civil service. He retired from the Federal Civil Service in November 2015. As a researcher, trainer, and writer, Professor Olaopa has authored numerous books, monographs, articles in peer-reviewed journals, chapters of books, publications, in conference proceedings, etc. Olaopa is a member of the Governing Council of the First Technical University, Ibadan, and served on the Governing Council of the Lead City University, also in Ibadan. He is a recipient of many honors and awards, including the 2015 National Productivity Order of Merit Award, University of Texas at Austin's Thabo Mbeki Award for Distinguished Public Service and Scholarship in 2018, University of Ibadan 70th Anniversary Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018, among others. He is married and blessed with children. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to today's public lecture with the title, May 29 and Onwards, Towards Nigeria's Rebirth and Transformation. Professor Tunji Olaopa, good morning, and I yield the podium.
Thank you, the Deputy Vice Chancellor and me, Professor Philip Afara. I'd like to pay my respects to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdul Rashid Nahaba. I recognize the Director and management staff of the Abuja Leadership Center, distinguished participants from different locations around the world, gentlemen of the... Ladies and gentlemen, we are addressing the subject May 29 and onward, towards Nigeria's rebirth and transformation. 6 concerns will constitute the focus of my discussion today. First, I would like to place May 29 within the context of Nigeria's political history and why it is crucial at this junction. Second, I will be situating this specific 2023 transition within the context of the critical crisis that the new administration will be inheriting. Third, I will be highlighting the leadership deficits confronting Nigeria and locating it within a broader and global search for a good, humane, strategic, and transformational leader for the Nigerian state. 4, and as a corollary, I will attempt to benchmark Nigeria's capacity for transformation within the transformational potential exhibited by global comparators like the Asian tigers. 5th, I will then contextualize this benchmark within the African continent by examining the Mo Ibrahim African Governance Index, which will help bring into sharp relief the issues limiting leadership performance in Nigeria especially. And 6th, I will then draw on significant lessons that the Tinubu administration could benchmark to commence and make a success of its governance objectives, strategies, and methodologies. By way of prefatory remark, many Nigerians have varying expectations about today, May 29. For the cynics and the pessimists, it is a transition that leads nowhere except the manifestation of a fresh spectacle of musical chairs. developed. Nigeria's status is quite dismal and discouraging. In terms of women poverty, Nigeria's own poverty index shows that 63%, approximately 133 million of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. In the ease of doing business index, Nigeria is ranked 131 out of 191 countries. And finally, in the Chandler Good Governance Index for 2022, Nigeria ranks 102 out of 104, only better than Zimbabwe and Venezuela. The brief articulation of Nigeria's current predicament provides a summary of the daunting implication of this May 29 transition from the old administration to the new one, and the enormous burden of history that's already placed on the shoulder of the new government. I'm however suitably situated to believe that our present position in that from our present position, the Nigerian state can also achieve an upward trend away from its crippling circumstances to a better condition. And my optimism is not recumbent on the usual hope that attends transitions such as this. And so what qualifies me to make this kind of assertion? I am an unrelenting student of politics and Nigerian governmental processes and procedure. My status as a scholar practitioner and as an institutional reformer provides me with more pedestal from which to bring a practitioner's angle to interrogate the nexus of leadership, governance, and public policy in outlining the imperative of national transition and development management. Coming to African leadership deficit and Nigerian challenge, this makes the issue of leadership a key matter in the fashioning of a developmental state around which institutional reform becomes a matter for crafting infrastructure and economic development. And in the Mo Ibrahim Index of African Governance for 2021, Nigeria ranks 30 out of 54 African countries. And in a 10-year classification trend from 2012 to 2021, Nigeria is placed in the category of increasing deterioration. And this explains why no Nigerian leader has ever won the Mo Ibrahim Leadership Index, or why the foundation skipped the awards for 10 years, because there were no worthy African leaders. And this is why Anthony Liaikoka, the former chairman, CEO of Chrysler in the United States, is right to assert in his, and wonder in his classic bestseller, Where Have All the Leaders Gone? To wonder where all the leaders have gone to in his best-selling book of the same title. African leadership deficit is complicated by two factors. One, the thorny issue of political selection and succession, how political leadership is put into office. And two, the critical issue of how these leaders perform when they eventually get to office and begin to deploy political power. The leadership problem in Nigeria is measured against the background of successful governments since independence to inaugurate the developmental state in Nigeria. The developmental state demands the deployment of a competency model to harness talents that will enable the government to build durable institutions, to articulate a productivity paradigm that will instigate a democratic service delivery framework for the citizens. But we need to be careful not to benchmark our leaders against standards that will keep crippling them and their performance, especially in context that will be incompatible with the standards they are benchmarked against. My chairman, distinguished audience, Nigeria, Asian, Tanga, and African comparators. The closest governance context to the African experience is Asia. And so we can start by benchmarking the new administration to the experience of the Asian tigers like Singapore. How did Singapore through Lee Kuan Yew make that fundamental jump from third to first? And it's not just Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. We had the same experience in Malaysia, South Korea, in Hong Kong, and so many others. 6 critical readjustments are key to that transformation that Nigeria can learn from. First, there was a rejection of import substitution for a pursuit of a bold and aggressive export-oriented development strategy. The second and corollary, development framework is the discipline that export strategy imposes on the cultivation of local consumption and local industries in a way that enables steady growth. Third, this cultivation of local consumption is geared towards the improvement of national productivity. This therefore makes it necessary to invest aggressively in education and training that inevitably leads to increase in per capita productivity of the national economy. Fourth, a corollary of this investment in training and education has to do with the investment in research and development, R&D. Developmental states are states that immediately see the significance of industrialization as markers of progress, and this requires a dynamical relationship, for instance, between industries and higher education that enables action research to fuel industrial breakthroughs, which in turn become research projects. Fifth, developmental states cannot afford to become profligate, wasteful with national finance. This automatically calls attention to transparency and accountability in the management of national accounts. The byproduct of this is the setting up of a solid anti-corruption strategy and structures that can back and bite. Lastly, and most significantly, developmental states take their public service institutions seriously in terms of reforming them into becoming world-class performance structures operating on meritocracy and competency-based human resource management. The Mo Ibrahim African governance brings home, even more crucially, the continent-specific standards and achievement parameters that are not captured in the universalized global benchmark. It not only tells us that leadership and leadership performance is context-bound, and this is where the existing continental monetary institutions like the new Partnership for African Development, NEPAD, and the African Peer Review Mechanism become significant partners in Africa's economic recovery and competitiveness. And given the failure to find distinguished leaders worthy of the Mo Ibrahim Leadership Prize, this becomes an even more daunting leadership challenge for someone like President Tinubu. From benchmarking lesson to government performance, these benchmarking points that I've been highlighting so far points us in several directions that the Tinubu administration can pick up its legacy of good governance form. The first is transformational leadership and the change space. The first and critical realization is what Nigeria requires from the new administration. The short and profound answer of what Nigeria requires for the new administration is national transformation. If this is so, then transforming Nigeria and the quality of lives of Nigerians must start with the critical question: how does leadership become transformational? On this question hinges the difference between a leader willing to achieve performance in terms of governance changes and one that wants to carry on business as usual. In answering this question, the conventional sense of a transformational leader is captured by the strongman theory. A leader that is decisive, intelligent, charismatic, and therefore heroic, who has the capacity to translate vision and strategy to outcomes based on compelling best practice and scientific and evidence-based data. However, while this conceptualization of a transformational leader is an irreducible requirement in governance successes, it is also essentially idealistic. The point is that every leader is context-bound, situated within a context of socio-economic, socio-cultural, and political practices. Within the context of governing, therefore, there are so many variables that make the success of a single person, even with the best of capacities, charisma, and wisdom, a most daunting feat, especially in a democracy. The complex terrain of governance presented by Nigerian state cannot therefore be located around an individual in terms of a solo or personalized heroic effort alone. On the contrary, what is required is a leader that has the capacity to put together a change space, graduated into multi-level leadership levels based on the paradigm that simple functions are required to effect change through multiple stages, requiring multiple parties to provide multiple leadership. This translates into the urgent assembling of coalition of change, a team that possesses sufficient patriotic commitment, professional expertise, and political wisdom to initiate, implement, and deliver the change needed to move Nigeria beyond our present predicament. And this must be done under the necessary dynamics of performance contracts, audit, and accountability to achieve peak and optimal performance. The simulation and this suggests that the leader is technically enabled to manage attention. What does that mean? The leader must, the new president must immediately convince the nation of his capacity to create a compelling vision of the new Nigeria that is leading others to build. One of the unfortunate things in the trajectory of Nigeria's evolution is that there is no strong, compelling vision or a strong statement with sufficient philosophical underpinning that gives an average educated Nigerian the picture of the Nigeria that the leadership, the political leadership in Nigeria is leading other people to build. We are not clear. We are not agree on the fundamentals. And this is after over six decades, of independence. So we need to manage the attention, create a compelling vision of the new Nigeria. The President Tinubu needs to create a compelling vision of the new Nigeria that is leading others to build. That's one. The second is that he must create meaning. He must be able to communicate the vision with clarity. And not only to his change team, who must be sold to the vision, he must be able to communicate it to all Nigerians, irrespective of their level of education. The next is that he must be able to manage trust in being able to set achievable goals with sufficiently enabled structure of accountability for results achieved. And he must be honest to explain when he's still struggling to get things done, where there are shortfalls. The last is that he must be able to manage himself. And that means he must be able to run away from what we know of past leaders in Nigeria, where there is a mismatch between the heart and the world. What they tell Nigeria is different from what they practice. So matching his words with his heart is what Nigerians would define as a measure of purposefulness. At the level of governance principles and methodology, this is where vision, purpose, and strategies are key. The president needs to commence the administration with a governance methodology embedded in Buhari's statement that was never acted. Quote, "I am for everybody and for nobody," which provides a detached platform for leadership and government practice. For instance, it will be the wrong foot forward if Tinubu starts by favoring only those who voted for him or aided him during the largest election, and neglect other people who are critical to the Nigerian project. I think the first leg of leadership is to commence with a national conversation to enlist and reconciliation, national healing, and enlisting everybody so that all hands can be on deck in leading. So, for that matter, we do not expect him to fill his cabinet with political jobbers. This is because the complex problem Nigeria faces require radical and innovative solutions and approaches. We cannot, as Albert Einstein admonishes, quote, solve our problem with the same level of thinking that created them. Indeed, we cannot continue seeing development agenda only in terms of the hardware components of infrastructure development that has locked Nigeria into a 19th century perspective on what development is all about. There is therefore the imperative to foreground the value of policy work reinforced with policy-engaged research and strategic thinking. This is more so because the world is now firmly in the knowledge age where hardware of development requires the software components to make sense. Indeed, Nigeria must rediscover the place and role of research in the generation of the requisite policy intelligence and action required to jumpstart critical progress. Action and policy research will indeed be the backbone of leadership sophistication and boldness to craft national agenda, development agenda that speak to context specificities in spite of the preferences of donor agencies and Western neoliberal orthodoxy. And so governance provides the government of the day a wide range of political and technocratic expertise to choose from. Subject specialists, think tanks, policy network, and research-enabled interest groups, which also have a strategic role to play within the governance space. The whole idea of governance of national competence come in. This is where the idea of putting together a government of national competence which demands the creation of a change space circumscribed by a competency model. The change space and competency model mean that the new administration is ready to jettison the business as usual attitude that is ready to play another 4 years of bad politics with the lives of Nigerians and the destiny of Nigerian state. And I ask the question, can a weak leader build strong institution? I've once asked that question. Of course, we have to answer in the negative. A leader is weak either because he or she lacks the political will to legislate very strong institutional building policy, or because he lacks the legitimate support of the people. Building strong institutions with curtailing capacity, with value-shaping capacity that would deliver democratic service delivery, one that is accountable to Nigeria, required a change space where functional and implemented policy can be made and results demanded. In terms of managing the change space, two immediate imperatives will guide the harnessing of managerial competence in that change space. First, the overall objective must be the launch of a national productivity movement. Nigeria cannot afford to continue in profligacy and wastefulness. The resources are no more there. And if they are there, they make meaning if they are used judiciously and with discipline. One that will be circumscribed by such critical pillars like the cost of governance reduction. We cannot sustain the current level of wastefulness in terms of current cost of governance. The government needs to unbundle the entire expenditure structure in government. We can no more be making noise about National Assembly members are earning a lot of money, ministers are spending this. There are so many wastages, and the nation requires to really mop up, the recurrent budget in order to be able to fund real concrete development projects. Nigeria needs to launch a national waste management program. We need a new national project management practices and a new maintenance culture. And this is where the second critical issue surfaces. We need a national performance management system, one that insists that all those who must participate in the change space must be held accountable to a performance agreement or contract and performance audit. We should never recycle people based on they are close to the president, they are untouchable. Of course, we will leave the management of the politics, to the president. But whatever it is worth, performance will be very key. This focuses attention to the significance of creating a capability-ready public service. And that will be that one that is operating on a managerial culture that is professionalized. We really need a more professional public service. The truth of the matter is that because of some kind of outdated bureaucratic model on which the public service is operating, one that makes even the most brilliant civil servants helpless. People are simply doing their best, but their best are not translating. So we need to rethink the entire bureaucratic model on which the public service, operates. The truth of the matter is that what we inherited, the Weberian public service, has been bastardized. The whole rule-based compliance system has been bastardized. And the world has moved on, and Nigeria cannot remain static. We need a more technocratic, value-driven, highly incentivized, accountable, and technology-enabled public service to sufficiently backstop the productivity movement that the government, the new administration would have to launch. Now, we cannot overstate the imperative of a capability-ready public service. The success of Tinubu administration, without mincing words, hangs on the capability readiness of the public service. Of course, everybody runs away from confronting institutional reforms because it has some downside which can make a government unpopular. But for all that is worth, the public service IQ, the intelligent quotient, requires to be beefed up. And for it to be beefed up means that even we may have to buy some bit of technical support for it. This is where it becomes fundamental to call for a reinvention of the public service systems, structures, values, and ethics. Indeed, the totality of work culture within the necessity of getting the basics of public administration right. What I'm saying in essence is that we need to rethink the intellectual basis of skills for running the business of government. We cannot do with anything less than a thinking, a knowledge-driven. We cannot afford a public service that promotes the most incompetent and unprepared to the very top of the service. We need to really inject life. We need to inject competence, and that will require rethinking the structures. It's not just about human being. We need to rethink the system and the public service values within and that will be the first leg of getting the basics right before we start even, re-engineering the entire system to fit into another model that will fit into the Nigerian requirement going forward. Modernizing the public service system thus translates into a deep-seated paradigm shift in the underlying bureaucratic model. I cannot but get to the level of the high-level governance reform that Nigeria requires, the restructuring to get a more developmental federalism. The other side of my expectation from the Tinubu administration is an issue that President Tinubu shares with the ideological framework that has sustained the Southwest in its bid to rehabilitate the Nigerian state. And this is the urgency of attending to the Nigeria's constitutional quandary, manifesting in its lopsided federal arrangement, not making any meaningful attempt to correct Nigeria's constitutional dysfunction, part of what constitutes Tinubu's democratic credentials and ideological profile, will create a huge hole that will drain all the good policy intentions of government. The truth of the matter is that it is convenient for governors to hide that Nigeria is not working by everybody blaming the center. But the truth is that it is the development outcome at the effort at the state level and the local government that will coalesce to get Nigeria to happen. Everything cannot happen from the center. And this is the urgency of attending to the constitutional quandary. Not making on the one hand, Nigeria and another pedestal, Nigeria's presidential system is being practiced in Nigeria is draining her budgetary capability. We can be a little more innovative in taking harnessing the benefit of presidentialism for the benefit of the country. This is part of the cost of governance worry that Nigeria has been saddled with, a lot of the constitutional conferences that I've held and a lot of work of scholars have rarely attended to most of these dimensions. And if we can shun the anti-intellectualism in the policy space, we can harness very beautiful ideas, to get Nigeria to work better. On the other hand, the lopsided unitary federalism has also been grievous in another way that the Tinubu administration cannot afford not to tackle. Nigeria cannot ever hope to make any governance success through a federalism that is emasculating its federating units at the expense of centralized framework that undermines the various units and their capacities to generate strength from their comparative advantage. The comatose, and I need to emphasize here that a lot of administrative efforts have been made, a lot of the amendments that have been made in the Constitution are in the right direction, but we really need to do a measure of impact assessment. We need to unbundle some of the binding constraints. For example, in the Mining Act, in some of the powers that have been given to the states to, in terms of power generation, there are some legislative constraints and all that needs to be looked at. Now, the comatose nature of the local government area has deprived the Nigerian state of a framework of local governance that could harness the values of subsidiarity to crystallize, for instance, a grassroots prepared poverty reduction program and a people-centered development process around which the new administration can redefine democratic administration. Now, in this regard, I dare say that it's not enough to legalize the autonomy of local governments. The federal government should have very strong conversation and shared vision with the governors. And within a decentralized framework, the states should be able to really give the local government the right space, so that, and there's a need for structural reengineering, to connect the community-based structures, traditional institutions, those coping mechanisms that have been sustaining people at the grassroots level needs to be aligned to the governance structure. And there are best practices all around the world, in India, in Bangladesh, and so many. And a lot of past experiments have also, so many of the my public discourse that I've referenced about the Mabugunjed Optimum Community Project, and then there are a whole lot in Bangladesh and so many other countries that we can take advantage of, and especially in the area of education, in the area of rural development. There was DFRI in Nigeria, there was People's Bank, there was Community Bank. These are incredible, innovative ideas which really needs reinvention. So we need professional strategic communication practices to engage Nigerians within a framework of social mobilization, popular participation, and democratic accountability. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen and chair, let me conclude my presentation by referencing Carol Pearson in the Transforming Leader, in the book Transforming Leader 2012. It says, and I quote, "If we want to make significant and long-lasting changes, we must first look within before we look without. We need to change the way we think about development by staying centered in the midst of the change with the strength of the political will. There cannot be, therefore, a one-size-fits-all solution to Nigeria's predicament. We need to really learn as we go. Even the transformational leadership model we have outlined cannot do without the underpinning of transactional, elements of leadership. In a deep sense, therefore, to reject the business as usual mindset that has kept Nigeria comatose for decades will entail cognitive redefinition, purposefulness, integrity, and leadership by example. Let me be bold in closing to say that the leader that will make a difference cannot be a people pleaser. A lot of the policies that the Tinubu government will need to put in place will be bite a lot, and there will be lots of hues and cry. But the truth of the matter, as we say in reform conversation, is that you cannot eat omelette without cracking egg. Meaning there will always be pain, and the leadership must be bold, and that's where strategic communication is very key. Carry Nigeria along, show leadership by example. We do not expect a leadership that will do marriage for their children with a lot of opulence demonstrated on our national media when people cannot afford to eat. We need to show example. We need to be accountable. We need to be transparent. And also, the president will need to wield the stick of the Machiavellian, even if he seldom uses it. Why it's a journey, though it's a journey with co-transformational traveler partner, the leader does not have to make his leadership a slave to the opinion and the will of the egocentric destiny destroyers. And there are many of them around the space in Nigeria who will want to hold the entire state to ransom, just simply for populism and for some errand diversion that should probably be managed with the force of political will. And that much we saw in the Lee Kuan Yew experiment in Singapore. For Nigerians, a lot must fall in several places with this transition to a new government, and I hope a new beginning in so many ways. Let me end with the poignant words of Christine Armstrong, the sportswoman. Times of transitions are strenuous, but I love them. They are an opportunity to purge, rethink priorities, and be intentional about new habits. We can make our new normal any way we want it. I thank you immensely, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, the management team of the Abuja Leadership Center, University of Abuja, for this seminar opportunity. And I say, God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you so very much, Professor Tunji Olaupa, in his element. Professor Tunji Olaupa is not just a scholar. He has seen the beginning and the end of the public service. He has seen it all, having served as a permanent secretary in the State House, in Nassau Rock Villa. He is considered as one of the few Nigerians that has deep knowledge of how the system works. So when we bring such a person to do explanation, to explain what is expected of the new government, I think we are in the right direction. There is no better person to have been able to explain what is expected as an insider that he is of the incoming administration than Professor Tunji Olaupa. And his topic, May 29 and onwards, towards Nigeria's rebirth and transformation, is couched like a wish list for the incoming administration. That as you are coming in, you have to pay attention to some of these issues, because governance in Nigeria cannot be allowed to continue the way it has been going. The citizens have started stepping in to really direct the ship of government the way they want it to go. Because if we allow our leaders to lead this nation adrift, we are all going to perish. It is not only the leadership that will perish, the entire country is going to perish. That is why the Abuja Leadership Center of the University of Abuja found it worthwhile to set up this conversation before the handing over actually happens later today. This conversation is to set the template for what is expected of the incoming administration, and to really warn government that, look, this time around we are all interested in what you are doing. The people of Nigeria are interested in what government is doing. The Nigerian youth, the Nigerian children, the elders are interested in what government is doing. Governance is not about people in National Villa alone. It is not about people at the National Assembly alone or the government houses at the state. Governance this time around is about the Nigerian people. So the Nigerian people are interested in what you are doing in your offices, wherever you are. That is why Professor Tunji Olaupa, on behalf of other Nigerians, is speaking out, is putting these remedies forward to remind the government that, look, this is what the people expect. Now, he has talked about rethinking governance, restructuring. He has also mentioned knowledge-driven governance. He also talked about public service restructuring, value-driven appointments, and against the normal political patronage that we always find in the Nigerian political space, where people are brought into government simply because they are members of a political party. He has also mentioned issues like cutting costs of governance, which we all know about, that it is high time Nigeria should start seeing how to cut costs of governance, especially at the level of those in government. The cost is pretty high. And he also talked about a very critical aspect, leadership by example. I think that is what has eluded Nigerians for a very long time now, leadership by example. You don't just talk at the people, pushing at the people that the people are the problem. The Nigerian people are not the problem of Nigeria. The problem of Nigeria squarely is the problem of leadership, and everybody knows about that. So Professor Olaupa spoke about leadership by example, and we all know the meaning of leadership by example, which means that the incoming president, the incoming governors, the incoming legislators must brace up to actually lead by example, and not just turning out policies that they themselves are flouting, not just making laws that they themselves are the one flouting. Would Nigerians expect the leadership to actually lead by example? I think those are the few I was able to pick from his presentation. But at this point in time, I will give room while you are, some of our participants, while you are preparing your questions that you are going to ask or the comments you are going to make. We will take maybe up to 4-5 comments after after the comments by the panelists here. I think we now want now to ask Dr. Ipasaja, who is also a faculty at the Abuja Leadership Center of the University of Abuja. Dr. Ipasaja, you have listened to Professor Tunji Olaupa. What is your impression of his presentation, and what is your take of this presentation?
Thank you, Prof. It's a very brilliant presentation there. I'm highly impressed by the presentation by Professor
Because
Mata,
this thing is
no other person can do this better than the professor himself. I really learned a lot, and you just kind of sum up the totality of what we have had since independence in Nigeria. And I want to draw your mind back to what you refer to as a competency model. We have had several reforms in Nigeria since independence. From my counting here, over 20 reforms. And you spoke emphatically on the public service itself. You said the public service kind of revolutionary need. We need professionals in the public service. The models we practice today is kind of outdated. You said you rethink the entire public service itself, and you made references and recommendations from what Prof said, the wishes that you just analyzed there. You thought of restructuring, bringing in innovation, technology, the kind of decentralization, and also you even brought up the issue of local government autonomy. And what really impressed me most is your boldness in making reference to the role of the governors, the systems in the previous years. Now, Prof, if I want to take a lead from what you just mentioned here towards the tail end of it, you said the success of Tinubu administration, without missing words, hangs on the capability and readiness of the public service to deliver on the mandate that President Tinubu sold to Nigerians. Now, if we talk about this competency model, you are talking about entire reforms again. The reforms we are talking about now, where are we going to bring the persons from? Are they not Nigerians? Because Nigerians have been there and they have a way of navigating through some of these intricacies. I have here over 13 internal and external mechanisms that have been established in the previous times, including ICPC, Public Complaint Submission, Code of Conduct, so many EFCC, Bureau of PP, Nigeria Extractive, NATI, ICROC, and all that. All these are entrenched in the public service to guide against this trend of corruption and all that. Now, if we talk about these models, or what you are referring that should be done, what are the mentality, the ethics of the persons, the morality thing about the individuals, the Nigerians, because you are not going to bring angels from heaven into the civil service. What can really be done? What do you think about the mentality of Nigerians? How do we change the thinking? Every Nigerian that goes into the system or that welcomes this government is thinking about what they are going to get from it. And they will be preparing how they will corner so many things out of the system. How do you think that this government, the new government that we are talking about now, how can we navigate, how can we eliminate some of these nuances, these issues about individuals, we, the persons that will work if the system are to be reformed? The individual, the mentality of Nigerians totally. How do we, so that this resistance of a thing, or the cabal, kind of a cabal particularly that we may find in the public service, how do we eliminate some of these things? How can the new government, how can this competency model that you are just recommending, how can we do about all these? I want you to be very specific. Perhaps with instances of very specific.
No, I get the point.
I think, Prof, let me add to that.
Yeah.
Because somebody just sent this question online. I think his name is Kazim Lamid. Kazim Lamid is a PhD student of public governance and leadership of the University of Abuja. He says, sir, you alluded to importance of good civil service to the attainment of a rebirthed Nigeria and the kind of transformation we all desire from the new government. What specifically, in your view, can be done to alter the current civil service in Nigeria in terms of culture, structure, capacity, character, and more importantly, value of civil servant and bureaucrat? I think this person knows you to be a public service intellectual. So you can add with Dr. Passager's question.
The starting point for the government, and if you want to reference the glorious years of the public service, even when we had the likes of Adebo, Udoji, Katagun, we had the likes of Abdulaziz Attad and the likes of Aida and Asiodu them. It is the quality of the demand that the government put on the civil service that compels it to bring its best out. When in Chiva Adebo's memoir, his autobiography, he says something. When the campaign of Chivaolo was on in the Western region at the time, the quality of the conversation caused him to bring the best, irrespective of hierarchy, together into a policy think tank within. So immediately as the government was campaigning, and you can see from the Tinubu conversation, there's a lot of policy analysis, think tank, and research that have been done. Adebo said he had prepared and used his best brain. He leveraged on University of Ibadan, University of Ife, the academia, and the industry. So the first meeting that Chivaolo had with them, he then told them what he wanted. Read, the matching act on them. He was shocked that Chief Adebo was ready. He gave a 1 hour response that broke down everything that the government, because they knew the quality of the leaders that are coming, the quality of technocratic and intellectual preparation that they have made. Immediately the civil services, you communicate that to the public service. Even if they have to buy the competencies, they will respond. That's one. So the question is, because of so many factors, majorly the human resource practices, that is not competency-based in the public service, the intelligent quotient of the service is a little suboptimal. And so most of the MDAs cannot really do their technical work without the support of consultants, which is a lot of waste of resources, unlike what it was in the days of the super permanent secretary. There is nothing wrong in having a marriage of research and policy and the industry, consultancy. So the IQ of the service is something that we need to alter. And it does mean that the service also must have the capacity to attract the best people. Because there are a lot of brilliant civil servants who divert their energy to so many things, moonlighting in order to survive, and all of that. So we need to really create the, professional environment that can bring out the best of the best in the civil society. The second thing is that, according to Bob Garrett, the fish get rotten from the head. We need to alter the top level of the public service and make sure that they are real thinkers. They are project managers. They are tactical people with deep level of policy intelligence. And that you cannot get from the current arrangement, from the current demographic. So that means, and the model that has been done all over the world is what we call the senior executive service. We should create a space. That's what you find in the United States. The top level civil service must have a space to bring the best the Nigeria have, either in diaspora or anything, and with the right kind of incentive. Because the whole essence of policy work is to use your best resources to get development to happen. So we need to alter the thinking, at that top level, leadership intelligence. So the senior, in terms of culture change, leadership is very critical. Administrative leadership is very critical. Immediately you have, a set of leaders who are running the public service as a value-propelled service, result-oriented service, who can hold themselves accountable. Because if you are a minister and you are a permanent secretary, and nobody is assessing there is no scorecard. So year in, year out, you can survive, whether you perform, whether you have been traveling all around the world and all. So the top level of government, whoever, must submit themselves to performance kind of agreement. You must have a scholar, you must have KPI-based, management system, and there must be conversation regarding your performance. We had a Federal Executive Council that keep awarding contracts. We have not seen quality, deep analytics regarding the performance of the economy. This should be happening like a quarterly. And it should have policy subcommittees made up of bright public servants, like it used to happen in those days, who make submissions, not just on propaganda regarding we have achieved, to even bring out the issues and the constraints that they are facing, and to connect with the right kind of competence in order to get solutions. So these are some of the efforts, and I've documented a bit on this lecture, and I have a whole lot of other articles online that people can access.
Prof. I think somebody's hand is up there. Someone's hand is up there. I cannot see the name. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Oppo Crest. Can you please unmute yourself? Yes. Unmute yourself.
Question to ask. Hello, Prof.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, please, I want to know if there is any distinction between public service and civil service, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You
Thank
have
you,
taken
sir.
note on that.
Yes, I have.
Thank you very much. We have another question there.
The OPO
Yes.
OPO A15. Can you
Ask your question?
You cannot.
You cannot.
Unmute yourself. Your mic is muted. Unmute your mic.
He can't.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Regarding the politicization of the civil service.
Hello?
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for these brilliant presentations. And education in Nigeria, and look at the nature of this our country, that so many things have been damaged, especially the unity of Nigeria now. It is not an easy task for us to bring back our unity, especially issue of diversity, ethnicity, religion, polarization, and so on. So please, sir, how can we tackle this kind of issue for us to have a sound nation? Because we have been complaining that this country, it has been damaged for our present leaders, as we, the younger ones, that we are coming to occupy such spaces tomorrow. And also that why most of our leaders, they are always like criminalities and looting our money. Please, how can we prevent such consequences for us to have a wonderful nation, and also for us to have a sound education? And look at our rural communities, that so many things have been damaged. People cannot eat, people cannot go to school. In fact, it's a near paralysis of economy in Nigeria. Please, sir, I just want more.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan Fulani, let me start with you. God can bless a nation, and God has blessed Nigeria with
Yes, sir.
a lot of resources.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go
Yes.
ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go
Let's
ahead.
go. Let's know who
Thank
you
you,
are.
Prof. Thank you, Prof. My name is Iborotonre, and I want to begin by thanking Professor Laopa for this lecture, which has brought so much of light and illumination. I know Professor Laopa by his writing. I have one of his books on reforms in the public service, innovation and best practices in public sector reforms. So for me, it's a privilege to now see him in person and hear him. His baritone and his powerful elocution. Thank you, Prof. Now, my question is, the lecturer, Professor Laopa, said what the next president needs to succeed is a compelling vision